Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the DFS Report. It is Thursday, January the 23rd. Hope everyone's having a fine Thursday afternoon. We have an 11-game slate on our hands, so we're not going to waste too much time. But hopefully you tuned into yesterday's show, because yesterday is the reason why you watch this show. It is the reason why you use the charts. I think for the most part, just to follow this show. Unfortunately, I was really kind of unable to translate that into a lot of DFS success because I pretty much nailed the entire slate. I think I called the 3-2 game in Colorado Winnipeg, which, that was basically the implied total. Is not all that difficult to predict, but I think I said it was going to be 2-1 in the Florida LA game as well. We loved, the potential for the Blue Jackets to be kind of a slate wrecker. They give the Leafs fits in the past, and then we just absolutely loved New Jersey, and literally all of those things happen. So hopefully, like I said, I still didn't have the best night despite being pretty correct on most things. So hopefully you were able to take what I said and what Zach said on the show and build better lineups than we did. And before we dive into today's slate, just want to congratulate DFS Discord user TBJ, who is our first, I believe, hat-trick pick winner since like October. Maybe November. Can't remember when the last one was, but TBJ picked Adam Fantilli hat-trick last night, and he capped it off with an empty netter. So shout out to TBJ. If you want to participate in today's hat-trick pick challenge, you can kind of keep, listen to everything we say and pick somebody at the end of the show. If you do pick a hat-trick pick that scores a hat-trick tonight, we'll get you $25 gift card to Nation Gear. You can pick up some daily face-off swag. Let's get into tonight's goaltenders, and then Zach and I will break the shit out of this slate. 11 games, a lot to get through. So here we go. Igor Shesterkin confirmed for the New York Rangers. Sam Ersson confirmed to get the start for the Philadelphia Flyers. It will be Frederik Andersen versus Daniil Tarasov as the Hurricanes face the Blue Jackets in the second half of a back-to-back. It'll be Cam Talbot versus Sam Montembeault, who makes a second consecutive start after a strong outing versus the Lightning the other night. Projected to see Jonas Korpisalo and Anton Forsberg tonight. Obviously Jeremy Swayman started last night for the Bruins, but they actually just called up Michael DiPietro from the AHL. I guess Joe Sacco mentioned that Jeremy Swayman dealing with a little bit of something after last night's game. So look for Korpisalo to get the start with Michael DiPietro as his backup. Philip Gustafsson gets the nod for the Minnesota Wild. It will be Karel Vejmelka for the Utah Hockey Club. Joel Hofer and Ilya Samsonov likely to start for the Golden Knights. Battle of backups there in St. Louis tonight. Calvin Pickard starts for the Edmonton Oilers versus Thatcher Demko for the Vancouver Canucks. Dustin Wolf versus most likely Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen for the Buffalo Sabres. And then really not a whole lot to go off in these late games. Likely, or expecting, I guess, projecting to see Joey Decord for the Seattle Kraken. Charlie Lindgren back between the pipes, giving Logan Thompson the night off tonight for the Capitals. And then we were projecting to see John Gibson. Obviously, they've been rotating. As of late, it would be John Gibson's turn. Alex Nedeljkovic has been really, really solid for the Penguins as of late, so we're projecting to see him. We could be completely wrong. It could end up being Blomqvist versus Lucas Dostal. We just really don't know here. But we do know is Yaroslav Askarov starts against his former team, as we talked about the other night, that he gets the home start instead of the away start in the second half of a home-to-home here against the Predators. Projecting to see UC Saros. Obviously, he was yanked the other night. Justice and Noonan did a great job in that come-from-behind win. Really kind of a 50-50 here. Like, are they going to go back to Saros and let him kind of get things back on track, or are they going to roll with a Noonan who looked really solid in the second half of that game? We shall see. But yeah, a lot of kind of goalies up in the air going to make this slate a little bit more difficult. But for the most part, Zach, looks like a really, really fun slate tonight. Are you ready to dive in?
Oh, you betcha, man.
Let's go here. Before we get in, yesterday was all right despite Toronto crapping the bed. Shout out to Zach for the Del Bell Blues recommendation. Yeah, Zach, that was obviously really, really good. We talked about the Toronto ties. And then when Cole Sillinger was ruled out, I actually bet Del Bell Blues for an anytime goal at plus 475. Really appreciated that. Marsharks hit fourth in the energy line last night, 2.5K. Needed the Kings not to win to hit 10K. Thanks. Congratulations to Discord user Marsharks. That's awesome stuff. Let's get into tonight's slate. We've got the New York Rangers minus 140 home favorites against the Flyers. 3.2 implied total. The Rangers obviously playing much better hockey as of late, but really, really tough matchups here for the Rangers. We know how good the Flyers have been at 5v5 as of late. Not great matchups on the Flyer side either, as some of these new look lines start to gel and start to, get some better defensive numbers. The kind of raw data that we were looking at, Zach, from a team perspective as of late for the Rangers is starting to show up in the charts with these from a more line perspective. You take a look here, the defensive metrics of this bottom nine really, really solid. The Panarin, Trocheck line still struggling a little bit defensively, but this to me isn't a game that I have a whole lot of interest on. From a DFS standpoint, I do think that the Flyers are a decent bet in the betting market. I bet them this morning, but I don't know if I'm going to play a ton of this game from a DFS perspective. I think I've been burned quite a bit by Philadelphia 1. Don't really feel like going back to the well with them. They continue to kind of struggle to actually generate scoring chances despite capitalizing on a bunch. The Couture-Mishkov line looked really good against the Red Wings the other night. Just not a great matchup in this one. You're going to see a lot of that New York third line, which has been really good. And then the Noah Cates line is always a great value option. If you really want to spend up for a really expensive line, they're always a decent pay down option, but again, matchup not all that great, although it is the best on the Philadelphia side. So, with as good as the Flyers have kind of been defensively as of late, I don't think that I'm going to get to too much New York. The top line grades out 10th best overall, just 2.3% ownership. And then on the Philadelphia side of things, just about 3% ownership coming in on their top line. Not a whole lot of ownership coming into this game. That's probably how I feel as well. Zach, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with that for the most part. I think I've got a little bit of interest in this game. New York 1 is starting to really turn a corner here and get back to some stronger offensive numbers we had seen earlier this year. Artemi Panarin's really lit it up against the Flyers in the past. 34 games played, 14 goals, and 44 points. I think I'm probably going to mix in a New York 1 stack here into my 20 max tonight, grading out as the 10th best line to target on this slate. You've been on some New York 2 as of late. They've been doing fairly well. Don't think I'll be getting there tonight. And I'll probably mix in a little bit in Philadelphia 3. Just continue to love them as a solid value option on a regular basis here.
Yeah, the underlying metrics for New York 2 continue to impress me. Again, somewhat small sample size and just not actually converting on any of those chances. So I talked about it the other day. I did play a little bit of them the other night. They did okay. I think Zibanejad had an assist. Cooley scored a goal, had a couple blocks. But in a tough matchup tonight, I just don't think it's really worth getting there. They're going to see a lot of that top line. Again, I think that's a line that I'm gonna probably gonna win me a lot of money here in the near future because they never seem to draw much ownership. But just kind of waiting for the right slate, and tonight doesn't really feel like that slate. In terms of the power play, both pretty poor power play matchups tonight as well. Both PKs have been quite solid. If I take a look here at the overall team metrics, both teams have been very, very good at 5v5 as of late defensively. Both teams still fairly solid offensively as well, but as I mentioned, both PKs playing well. It just doesn't look like a game that's going to be overly high scoring and drawing too much of my interest. Okay, we've got the Blue Jackets in Carolina tonight, second half of back-to-back for them. You've got the Hurricanes at minus 371, 4.0 implied total, by far and away the highest on the slate, 2.1 implied total for the Blue Jackets. Blue Jackets looked great last night. Maybe not great. Merzlikins looked great, but they were able to pull out a big victory over the Maple Leafs. Just they have that team's number. Kind of feels like a nice letdown spot for the Blue Jackets tonight, right? Like we talked about how this team just cannot score on the road. Maybe they just something about playing the Maple Leafs works for them. I feel like they're going to probably get kind of run over tonight. I bet Carolina minus 1.5 in this one. I think that this has got a big performance for Carolina written all over it, and with Tarasov between the pipes, feel pretty good about that. Hopefully Frederik Andersen looks a little bit better than he did in his first game back, but really, really good matchups across the board here for the Hurricanes. Not totally surprising. Second line's been playing well as of late. Kotkaniemi 2-goal game in his last outing. I wouldn't trust that too much. But yeah, I think much of the same here with me with Carolina. Really like this top line. They've been letting me down a little bit as of late, but really good matchup here. They're going to see a lot of that Cole Sillinger-less second line of the Columbus Blue Jackets, which grades out pretty poorly defensively. The offensive numbers continue to be awesome for Carolina 1, just not actually converting on all of these chances. So hopefully that starts tonight. You can see how they're letting me down. They make sense, but they're just not quite getting there. Then Carolina 3, obviously a great value option on any slate. Their matchup tonight quite good. They're going to go head to head with that Adam Fantilli line tonight. That Fantilli line, decent defense numbers, not terrible. Still keeping the puck out of the net despite giving up, a plethora of chances, especially the high danger variety, which is really where that third line of the Carolina Hurricanes excels. So overall, Carolina 1 still grades out 13th. A lot of that has to do with the fact that they are just projected for 27% of the ice time. So they don't play as much as your kind of typical first line, but still only seeing 7.4% ownership. I really think that this is a good spot for Carolina 1. Jackson Blake keeping that price point down as well at $3,100. He's just 16,400 to full stack them seems real nice. Second and third lines grade out pretty well as well. The third line's actually more expensive at the moment with Seth Jarvis at $6,600. Neither one seeing all that much ownership. So I feel like I'm going to pretty easily get over the field here on Carolina tonight and feel great about that. I'm a little surprised at how low this ownership is, but I guess they really haven't been just scoring a lot, right? The power play continues to be just horrible, and it's really limited their ceiling. So I can see why maybe the public is staying off them a little bit. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, I agree with the public here. I don't think I'm going to be getting to much Columbus, if any at all. I think I've got some interest in some Del Bell Blues one-offs. I mean, $2,600. He's absolutely popping in the raw projections. Obviously, he's had a couple of pretty big nights here early on in his first 7 NHL games. So I don't necessarily think it's the greatest play or anything like that. But hey, you know what? Maybe he can stay hot tonight and find a way to bank another one in or get on the scoreboard in some way. One of those games this year was against the Carolina Hurricanes, and he did have a goal in that game. So, I mean, at his price point at $2,600, you're pretty much just kind of punting away there anyways at that price point for a forward. So don't mind mixing him in a little bit, but I don't think I'm going to be getting to any more of this Columbus side here. You mentioned Carolina 3 matching up with Columbus 1 there. That's a pretty bleak matchup for them, right? We look at Carolina 3 as one of the top shutdown lines in the entire NHL. So pretty easy fade spot here, I think, for the Blue Jackets top line. I've got some interest in the Hurricanes here as well. I mean, you mentioned Carolina 1. They've been looking fairly solid, all things considering. I'll be getting back down to Carolina 3 as I normally do, especially in slates where I 20 max. I love to get down there for some salary savings. Granted, you're not getting as much as you used to with Jordan Staal and Jordan Martinook. Both of their salaries have kind of climbed up a little bit here. Jordan Staal up to $3,700, Jordan Martinook up to $3,300, but still that line 13,600 to full stack. I don't mind that idea here on this slate tonight.
Aho has a goal and 5 assists in 3 meetings with the Blue Jackets so far this season. The Hurricanes have scored 4 and 3 goals in those 3 meetings. Also, though, too, the Blue Jackets credit, they've scored 4 goals twice in the 3 meetings this year. So they found a way to kind of produce offense against a difficult defensive team, but this just feels like a bad spot coming off a win. Back-to-back traveling from Toronto to Carolina just feels like a real bleak spot here for the Blue Jackets. So yeah, I'm off them entirely tonight. Top line is in a really difficult spot. So Carolina, hopefully Sebastian Aho can continue his red hot run against the Blue Jackets this evening. Oh, power play. As I mentioned, the Hurricanes power play is really what's been an issue as of late. 32nd worst in the league over the last 10 games, going up against the 8th ranked PK. They have the worst power play advantage on the night. So again, part of the reason why they haven't been all that great lately and why the public's kind of keeping off of them a little bit. The ownership is pretty modest. So the Blue Jackets have been solid in the power play, but again, they don't score a lot on the road. Really tough matchup here against a solid Hurricanes PK. Let's get to the Red Wings and the Canadiens. If you didn't hear it this morning, the Red Wings will be without Patrick Kane tonight. He is day-to-day with an injury, so Vladimir Tarasenko moves up to the second line, and Joe Veleno draws in on the third line. In terms of the matchups for this one, pretty good matchups on both sides. I will say, though, the Canadiens have been a little bit better defensively as of late. I guess it's not really showing up. Maybe it's starting to turn back the other way again. Over the last 10, 2.97 expected goals against. So maybe turning back to kind of their old ways where after a pretty hot run there, but yeah, matchups are pretty good here across the board for the Detroit Red Wings. Going to see a lot of the third line against the Suzuki line, which is kind of a modest matchup for the Suzuki line. But then the Red Wings, for me, without Kane in the lineup, it feels like it's going to be kind of top line or bust. With Casper, Raymond, and Larkin, they've been really, really solid. 3.7 expected goals for per 60, 16 high danger. Really, really good numbers. Basically, if you go up against anybody other than Montreal 3, you're in pretty good shape against the Habs. The Red Wings top line, going to see a little bit of ice time against them, but nothing crazy. So, yeah, pretty good matchup here for Detroit. One that's performed, quite admirably as of late. With Casper up there, $2,900, keeps the salary down to $17,200. Really not drawing a whole lot of ownership. Montembeault obviously turned in a strong outing the other night. I don't really care that much. I don't think he's that great. Like, he's fine, but not a goalie that worries me all that much. So, yeah, I definitely have interest in the Red Wings tonight at 5% ownership. I'm going to play this top line. I'll probably mix in some power play stacks as well. It is worth mentioning, though, that the Montreal PK has been quite solid, 6th best over their last 10 games. But the Red Wings still grade out with the 2nd best power play advantage of the night because the Habs, despite having a good PK, they really kind of put a lot of pressure on that unit because they take a ton of penalties. So, yeah, the Red Wings power play continues to be red hot. I would imagine it probably struggles a little bit more without Patrick Kane tonight, but I have no problem kind of going with a Sider, DeBrincat, Raymond, Larkin, 4-man stack and hoping for the best there. So without Kane, I'll probably be off Detroit too. I've been playing them a lot lately, but Detroit 1 and Detroit power play would be my targets here. I don't necessarily hate getting over to the Montreal side of things either. Cam Talbot hasn't been nearly as strong as of late as he was early in the season. The underlying metrics for this top 9 are all, it's pretty good. And then the Red Wings continue to struggle mightily on the penalty kill, 31st in the league over the last 10 games. So I do think that there's reason to get to Montreal here as well. This top line grades out 7th best, also seeing about 5% ownership. They've been playing extremely well. I bet the over in this game. I think this game has potential to be pretty high scoring. I believe every single one of their meetings so far this year has been pretty high scoring as well. So I think both sides of the puck are very interesting tonight. Just pulling up quickly. So in their 2 meetings so far this year, the Habs have won 4-3 and 5-1. So definitely the Habs have kind of had Detroit's number so far this season. And, this top line is going to do the majority of the damage. I don't mind the salary relief you might get from like the second or third lines as well if you feel like getting there. This is just a good game environment to target, in my opinion. How do you feel about the Habs and Red Wings tonight?
Yeah, I do agree with you there. I do like this game quite a bit. For me, I got a lot of interest in this Detroit 1 line. As you mentioned with Casper up there, they've looked really solid. The power play also looks really good here tonight. For the Detroit Red Wings, second best power play matchup on the slate. Granted, they are going up against a 6th ranked penalty kill who has been really solid as of late here for the Montreal Canadiens. But the Detroit power play just kind of seems to keep chugging along here. I'm curious to see what it'll look like without Patrick Kane there. Obviously, that's a definite loss for them there tonight. But I'm comfortable building around the Red Wings top line here tonight. I don't think I'll be getting to that second line. Vladimir Tarasenko, he's just been really disappointing to me since he's joined the Detroit Red Wings, just doing absolutely nothing out there on a regular basis. So I think it'll be a little bit of a drag down there, but I don't mind mixing in and Alex DeBrincat into a Detroit 1 stack to get a little bit of extra power play exposure there. The Montreal side of things, I've been playing some more Montreal 1 lately. I think that I'm going to be getting to them here on this slate tonight too. Modest ownership coming in on both sides of this game here, right? Nothing too crazy. 4.4% for Detroit 1, 5% for Montreal 1. I do agree. It does feel like it might be a little bit of a higher scoring game here. So I don't think I mind getting a little bit over the field on both of these top lines. Another one of those value lines for me that I keep kind of going back to on a regular basis is Montreal 3. They don't necessarily grade out the best or anything like that. But Brendan Gallagher is a guy who's had success against the Red Wings in his career. 35 games played, 18 goals, and 29 points against them. So if you need to find some real deep salary savings here tonight, that is one route that you can go for sure.
Worth mentioning that there aren't really any games with a 6.5 over/under tonight. This is actually the highest implied total of the night. The over 6 is -116, which is the highest odds on an over 6 on the slate tonight. So definitely a game that looks, has one of the best game environments tonight from a DFS standpoint. Let's get to game number 4. I believe it is. It's the Bruins and the Senators. Josh Norris out at least the next 3 games for the Sens, which means they shuffled their lines and they are pretty gross. Nick Cousins with Stützle and Batherson. Batherson, I think, is just the shot volume is just completely dried up with him as of late. Don't really know what's going on there. Tkachuk and Pinto have formed a pretty good duo together so far this season. We saw an extended run with Tkachuk, Pinto, Ridley, Gregg that worked quite well. The way the lines are currently constructed, it's not great offensively, but these defensive metrics are simply unbelievable. This game doesn't feel like it's going to be overly high event and one that I really have all that much interest in. I mean, you look at the Bruins matchups, you look at the pace score, it's pretty disastrous. The one thing is, like, that Boston 1 line, they had, they got on the board early last night. They've played pretty well, but I just think this is a tough matchup. Like, the Sens we've talked about it. Like, they basically just have sucked the fun out of hockey entirely. The defensive metrics are unbelievable. 1.96 expected goals against per 60 at 5v5 is the best on the slate. But then they're averaging just 2.09 expected goals for. Like, they are just doing nothing at 5v5. The game is just so boring, so low event, so low scoring. The PK has been unbelievable. I just don't really see a spot in which the Bruins produce much offense tonight whatsoever. But on the same side, like I don't know really if we see a whole lot of offense from this Montreal side either, or this Ottawa side either. Like, yeah, okay, 3.1 expected goals against per 60 for the Bruins, but like, I don't know. Like, I want to have interest in the Sens night. I really do. I just don't know how I'm going to get there. It'll probably, I might consider going with a little bit. They do have the third best power play advantage on the night just because the Bruins PK sucks. So, like, maybe try to target that power play a little bit. But even that is so broken up. So, maybe a Stützle, Batherson mini stack is the route to go. You got Kachuk and Giroux on the second line as well. So, there's ways to target it. I don't know exactly which one of these lines I am going to end up with more of. The second line's got a slightly better matchup. The top line's got slightly better offensive numbers. Do you have any interest in this center side of things? Is there one line that you can talk me into? Or are you kind of feeling the same way that you're not all that interested in this game?
Think I'm going to be off the Senators entirely here tonight. You take a look at their numbers as of late here over their last 10 games, 1.35 goals for per hour of ice time. That's the lowest of any team on the slate tonight. Hell, it's even lower than the Anaheim Ducks. I mean, that is kind of ugly over there in Ottawa right now. I want to have a little bit of interest in Boston 1 here tonight. And the reason for that is mainly just David Pastrnak. He continues to be tremendous as of late. I talked about him last night. Didn't quite get there for me. But 2 games against the Senators so far this season. In the most recent game, which was just played last week on January 18th, a goal and 3 points, 6 shots on goal for Pastrnak. He had 33 DraftKings points that game. Second game earlier this season, 1 assist, 2 shots on goal for 8 points. So it feels like it might be a little bit, either way. Obviously, it can go here for Pasta tonight, but I think I'm going to mix in 5% Boston 1 here tonight on a full stack and not leave off Morgan Geekie like I did last night, like a total doofus in one of my lineups. I was a little upset about that one, I'm not going to lie. Nonetheless, I think I'm going to go back to the well a little bit on Boston here. I realize that it's a really ugly matchup score here. I do think that this is going to be a fairly low scoring game, but past over his career has had a lot of success against the Senators. 30 games played, he's got 18 goals and 42 points. So, clearly likes to go up against them for whatever reason. Looks like it's Anton Forsberg in net tonight. I kind of like that a little bit better for the Bruins here tonight on this slate, but nothing crazy whatsoever here. I might have like 5% Boston 1 and just leave it at that.
Yeah, like that's the thing, right? Like these teams just played and it was a 6-5 game. So it's like the potential is there. I just don't know how, and yeah, you got Forsberg and Korpisalo between the pipes. Like it feels like there's potential. And that's why I want to have interest, but then the numbers just say the complete opposite. And it's hard for me to really just buy into like 1 6-5 game when the majority of the rest of these two teams' games as of late have been no offense for either side. So yeah, like I'm probably on the opposite end of you. I'll probably be more on the Ottawa side. I'll probably have a Stützle Batherson mini, might have a Pinto Kachuk mini, and then that's probably it. But yeah, overall, not a whole lot on either side. Let's move on to the next game. You've got Minnesota and Utah. If you didn't know, the Minnesota Wild will get Kirill Kaprizov back tonight. So it'll be Kaprizov, Rossi, Zuccarello on the top line, Boldy, Eriksson, Hartman on the second line. The one kind of difference from before when Rossi was in the lineup is Eriksson Ek will remain on the top power play unit and Rossi will be on the second power play unit. So that's kind of unfortunate for Minnesota 1 stacks. Minnesota 1 is pretty interesting to me tonight. I think getting Kaprizov back, like I bet them this morning, and getting Kaprizov back, I think is going to provide a jolt for this team offensively, but still not a team that scores all that many goals. Even when he was in the lineup earlier, it was basically just that one line doing everything. They're going to see a lot of Utah 3 tonight, which is basically average defensively. The second line is going to see a lot of the top line for Utah, which is basically average defensively. So, I do like the Wild tonight. I don't know how much I'm going to end up getting there. Seeing them as the third best line at 5% ownership, though, definitely piques my interest. Having Kaprizov back in the lineup is definitely interesting. I think if Rossi had stayed on PP1, I probably would have a little bit more interest, but I'll probably get to a little bit of Minnesota 1. I don't, without Sergachev, I still think that this Utah team is quite vulnerable, especially in Minnesota tonight. So I'll probably get to a little bit of Minnesota 1. Might sprinkle in some Minnesota 2. They're fairly cheap at 16,900. You've got Eriksson Ek and Boldy on that top power play unit. That power play unit, not great. 16th best going up against the 7th ranked PK. Obviously, that top power play unit, though, will get better with Kaprizov back in the mix tonight. Jared Spurgeon's also back for them tonight. Not that has too much, makes too much of a difference, but he'll also be on that top power play unit. So I'm definitely interested in mixing in some low-owned Minnesota tonight. I think it's a pretty good spot for them. The implied total of 3.3 is among the best on the slate. So, yeah, sign me up for some Minnesota. Basically, totally been off this Utah team since Dylan Guenther got hurt. The top line continues to score at an alarming rate, but not really generating a whole lot. Don't know how sustainable it is. The second line's been awesome with Hayton, Josh Doan, and Matias Michelli. But the matchups here are super, super bad. Philip Gustafson has been one of the best goalies in the world this year. So I'm off Utah. Definitely got some minor interest in Minnesota. How about you?
Yeah, I agree with you here. I like the looks of this Utah one or Minnesota one line here tonight, grading it as the third best line to target, projecting for just 4.8% ownership. Anytime, like I honestly, just from a bigger picture look at this slate here, these top 5 lines, I've got a lot of interest in all of them. Even Nashville won at some chalk there at 11%, but these other 4 lines that are in there, they're all pretty low owned here tonight in what feel like some really good spots for them. So for me, Minnesota one, I'm going to get up over the field on them. $20,500 isn't too egregious to full stack with Marco Rossi, Zuccarello, and Kaprizov up there. So, 2 games earlier this season, both in December, one of them was a 5-4 win for the Minnesota Wild, and the other was a 2-1 win for the Utah Hockey Club. So I kind of lean towards this being a bit of a lower scoring game where I'm thinking that Minnesota one is going to be the one to kind of get it done here tonight. That's the way that I'm going to play this game. Kaprizov, goal and an assist in those 2 games there. Marco Rossi, 2 points as well, and Zuccarello had a goal in one of those games, which he played in. So don't mind the idea of Minnesota one here whatsoever tonight. Obviously, Jared Spurgeon returning to the team as well. I like him as a defenseman tonight on this slate, up there on that top power play unit. The Utah Hockey Club, it's just kind of bleak there, right? And like you said, too, without Dylan Guenther, I just don't really have a whole lot of interest in that side of things whatsoever here tonight. Obviously, Philip Gustafson in the net, he's been one of the top 3 goaltenders in the league all season long this year. And it feels like another spot where he can kind of slam the door on the Hockey Club.
Yeah, I mean they've done a decent job, as I pointed out. Like the top line's been good, the second line's been good. They've done a nice job treading water without Guenther. 3, 4, and 5 goals their last 4 games. But I don't know how much you can trust this team on the road. Like they've been solid on the road. Don't get me wrong, but in their last 5 road games, 2-2, 1-5, and 2 goals. So. And one of those games was that 2-1 game you spoke of in Minnesota. I think they're a team that I definitely am more interested in targeting when they play in Utah. On the power play, as I mentioned, the Wild 13th best overall, the Utah Hockey Club 28th on the power play. Obviously not getting any better without Sergachev or Guenther. Going up against the 16th ranked PK. Not all that interested. Okay, St. Louis and Vegas. This is really interesting. These 2 teams obviously just met recently as well. And the Blues, for whatever reason, seem to give the Vegas Golden Knights fits more often than not. They've met twice this year. Vegas won the first meeting 4-3, and then the Blues won the second meeting a couple days ago 5-4 in a shootout. So a couple high-scoring games. The goalie matchup tonight, too, with Hofer and Samsonov, I think, opens things up a little bit for this game offensively as well. Both goalies are solid. Just I don't think they're as good as Jordan Binnington or as good as Aiden Hill have been this season. So 3.4 implied total, -148 road favorites here for Vegas. I bet the over and the Blues in this one this morning. I think that the Blues, like I said, they seem to always give this team fits. And then you look at the matchup scores here. They're in a great spot at 5v5 tonight, the way this Golden Knights lineup is constructed. If you missed it, the Vegas Golden Knights will be without William Karlsson tonight, so obviously that helps the Blues offensively. Karlsson's still one of the best two-way centers in the league, very, very good defensively. He's expected to be replaced by Brett Howden at the third line center, but Howden himself is also a game time decision tonight, so could be missing a couple of key third liners tonight for the Vegas Golden Knights. But the matchups here, like I said, really, really good for St. Louis. St. Louis 1 has the best matchup overall, and that is the Shen line. We've swapped them. The Shen, Holloway, Kyrou line is now St. Louis 1. The Thomas line is now St. Louis 2. They're going to see a lot of that third line, so that really helps them getting William Karlsson out of the mix. And St. Louis 1 grades out tremendously well at $14,800, seeing under 5% ownership tonight. They've been awesome, right? These underlying metrics are very, very encouraging. We were playing them when they were just like outrageously cheap, and they were just smashing for us basically on a nightly basis. With Samsonov expected to get the start tonight, I think St. Louis one's in a really good spot to keep things rolling. So I will definitely be firing them up. On the Vegas side of things, the matchups don't look quite as good. The top line's got the best matchup. I think that I might sprinkle in a little bit of Vegas one tonight. They're seeing basically no ownership, and we know that they've kind of got some slate breaking potential. So we talked about these games being relatively high scoring so far this season. The Vegas Golden Knights have four goals in each game against the Blues so far this season. So certainly capable of scoring. And this top line at literally 1% ownership seems fine. And then the second line, I talk about it every time. I'm basically addicted to playing them. They're also seeing no ownership. Pavel Dorofeyev's back on a heater. He was like red hot, then like ice cold. Now he's back to being red hot, just as streaky as they come. Don't mind getting to a little Vegas 2 tonight either, as it's kind of a salary relief, low owned option either. What are you doing with St. Louis and Vegas tonight?
Yeah. Again, as I mentioned just before in the last game we were talking about there, St. Louis one, I got a lot of interest in them here tonight. Projecting for 4.7% ownership. I'm probably going to be double, maybe even triple the field in a tremendous matchup for them going up against that Vegas 3 line. The 2 previous games this year between these 2 teams were both in Vegas. The Blues won the most recent one, which just happened on January 20th, 5-4. And then the other game, if I can find it here, happened earlier in the season. I think that Vegas took that one. Yeah, Vegas took that one 4-3 very early on in the season, 3rd game of the season. So, that was really before this St. Louis 1 line really started to chug along. You talk about the price of these guys. They're still really cheap to me, man. Like $14,800 to full stack these guys feels way too low. And what's really interesting too is like we've seen Holloway's salary come up, pretty significantly. We've seen Schen's creep up a couple of $100 here, but for whatever reason, Jordan Kyrou's salary has actually done the opposite on DraftKings, where he's kind of dropped down from that like mid 6K range down to 6K flat here tonight. So I got no issue getting over the field here. On this line. These are guys that have had success against Vegas in the past. Jordan Kyrou, 20 games played, 4 goals, 15 points. Braden Schenn, 3 goals, 15 points in 26 games. So they might be one of my favorite lines here to target on this slate tonight. So I'll be well over the field here on St. Louis 1. Don't think that I'll be getting to any of these other lines here from the St. Louis side of things. Man, you're just totally ready to get hurt by Vegas 2 again, aren't you? Hey?
No, like I'm not going to go in too hard tonight. I just always think that they're interesting, right? Like you get such a good floor out of somebody like Dorofeyev. I think Thomas Schertl is probably underpriced a little bit at 54. I got a thing for him. It's weird.
Yeah, no, and you know what? I can get it. I get it. I mean,
the price tag just seems so good at that. Like that, yeah, the floor, and they've got pretty good upside at that price tag. It just always feels like they just always seem like an okay play. Like they're never my favorite, but then I just kind of always look at them like, yeah, I could build a lineup with them at that price point. Just to give you an idea, Dylan Holloway since December 23rd, 17 points in his last 13 games, also 35 shots on goal during that time. During that same stretch, Jordan Kyrou, 13 points in 13 games, and Braden Schenn, 12 points in 13 games. So they've all been unbelievable. They're all averaging, at least 2 or 3 shots on goal per game. They're putting the puck in the net on a night-to-night basis. They're under 15,000. I don't know what more you really could want from a line tonight. So obviously I think that people are a little bit nervous about the matchup with the Vegas Golden Knights. I think obviously that they're not going to be showing up in optimizers all that much because of the 2.8 implied total. But I think that even if they score only 2 or 3 goals, it could all be from St. Louis 1.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's where my interest is coming from there. One interesting thing too about, this Vegas 2 line tonight, if you take a look at the power play matchup, the Golden Knights have the best ranked power play over their last 10 games in the NHL, going up against a very disciplined St. Louis Blues team here. But this Vegas power play 1 sees 84% of the ice time, and their power play quarterback is none other than Shea Theodore, who's on an absolute heater right now, man. In his last 10 games, 1 goal and 13 points. He's averaging 11.6 DraftKings points per game. In the 2 games against the St. Louis Blues this season, Shea Theodore has a goal and 6 points, averaging 21.9 DraftKings points per game. So you know what, Brock? I don't mind the idea of a Vegas 2 lineup or 2 with Shea Theodore there. You get that correlation on the top power play unit with Thomas Hertl and Pavel Dorofeyev. You know what? I think you talked me into backing this Vegas 2 here line tonight.
So you're ready to get hurt by Vegas too, is what you're saying?
100%.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I think Vegas 1 and Vegas 2, Vegas power play, it's all in the mix. I think this game is going to be fairly high scoring. And yeah, I mean, it's a shame that both, like, if this turns into a bit of a penalty filled game, I mean, the two power play advantages here are just gargantuan, right? You got seventh best power play going up against the 30th ranked penalty kill. You got the number one power play going up against the 25th ranked PK. The only reason they don't grade out way better is because they're both like two of the least penalized teams in the league. So if somehow this turns into a physical contest, a couple extra power plays, I mean, this could turn into a bit of a barn burner this evening. Let's move on to the Oilers and the Canucks. One team very exciting, one team very not exciting. And the Oilers are minus 172 home favorites, 3.3 implied total. Leon Draisaitl, despite the loss the other night, just continued to be unbelievable and play extremely well when Connor McDavid is out of the lineup. Zach, I mean, you're our Oilers guy, so I'm going to lean on you here as I usually do in these Edmonton games. But, like, give me a reason why I should target anybody else other than this top line, because these lines are gross.
Yeah, they are pretty gross. It gets pretty thin pretty quickly when you don't have Connor McDavid there on the team, right? You know, this second line, I'm not sold that Corey Perry is going to be the guy there for a while. You know, Jeff Skinner got the start against Washington on Tuesday, but he only ended up playing like 12 minutes of ice time in the entire game. I don't really think that they're going to stick with this, you know, bottom nine a whole ton beyond the Nugent Hopkins line. So, you know, it wouldn't surprise me to see like Skinner maybe get some shifts with Henrique and Hyman or Kapanen. I honestly don't mind the idea of maybe sprinkling in a little bit of Edmonton too here tonight. Obviously, you got Hyman on the top power play unit. Adam Henrique, like, he's obviously not the player that he was offensively in Anaheim, right? He's being asked to play a bit of a different role, but you know, this is a guy, and I talk about it on our shows, you know, at Oilers Nation here, where like he doesn't just forget how to score points. He's had some solid games throughout the year so far this season. The matchups are pretty mid for the Edmonton Oilers as a whole here, but you know me, man. Edmonton won, firing them up for sure here tonight, right? And the nice thing is too is like they're really cheap, man. $17,100 to full stack these guys. You know, you get great floors from Leon Draisaitl and Victor Arvidsson. Arby continuing to fire the puck at will. Vasily Podkolzin has had some real solid games where he's kind of popped off too, with like 4 or 5 shots on goal. And at his salary at $3,500, I think that's a very valuable add in there. You know, in terms of the Canucks side of things, it's pretty much the same thing that I always say about this team. You know, once they trade JT Miller, I'll start having some interest in playing the Canucks again, because they just feel such a mess with everything going on off the ice. But the truth of the matter is that they really just don't grade out well at all here tonight. Vancouver 1 coming in as the 34th best line to target. Vancouver 2, 44th. Vancouver 3, 57th. They've done nothing as of late offensively. You know, granted, they've been terrible, and their power play has been awful. You know, the one nice thing, nice thing for the Canucks is that they're still playing solid defensive hockey. 2.2 expected goals against per hour over their last 10 games here. But yeah, I just don't think I'll be getting to this Vancouver side whatsoever. Going to be an exciting game though. Obviously, given everything that kind of transpired last Saturday night between these two teams. I think the Oilers are going to be highly, highly motivated coming in tonight here. So really like Edmonton 1. And the other thing that I'll mention about them too, Victor Arvidsson up there on PP1 as well. The power play did not look very good in the game against Tuesday there. The Oilers only had 2 man advantages. I think they took 2 shot attempts on both of those, which was pretty gross. But you know what? A couple days of practice here. Maybe we'll see something a little more efficient from them on the man advantage. Yeah,
I don't think I have a ton of interest in this game besides Edmonton 1. They grade out second best overall still. They're only $17,100. I'm in agreement with the public here. It's probably mostly a Leon Arvidsson mini stack. I don't hate Podkolzin, but I liked him a lot better when he was $2,700, and it was like you could like at least accept that he might put up 0 points.
Yeah.
At $3,500, I think it's starting to get a little bit more difficult to play him. But you know, I'd still rather include him and get the correlation than, you know, somebody else at $3,500 most likely. But if I can avoid it, I'd probably leave him off, you know, the majority of my Edmonton 2 stacks and just go with Leon Arvidsson minis. But you know, a couple more bagels, maybe he'll be back down at $2,700 soon. Is Connor Garland scoring tonight just to piss off Oilers fans even more?
Oh, 100%.
100% he is. Yeah,
Hammer and a Garland anytime tonight, folks.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, Calgary and Buffalo. So yeah, you've got the Oilers and the Flames on the card tonight, which means Zach and Bill in Edmonton 1, Calgary 2 stack. I think you sent me that before I even woke up this morning, and you're on the later time zones. So you're like, hey, look what I can do tomorrow. Calgary 3.1 implied total, minus 133 home faves. This game looks pretty bleak. The matchups aren't terrible on the Calgary side of things, not great on the Buffalo side of things. I'm not going to waste too much time on this game. I don't have a lot of interest. I don't think it's going to be super high events. I think that UPL is obviously a quality goalie. Played pretty well in Vancouver the other night. Dustin Wolf's been awesome. I want to buy in a little bit to Buffalo one. What we saw from them the other night was really encouraging. Where are they? Can't find them already. Buff, there they are. 11th best. So, I want to mix them in. I love Yuri Kulich. Yuri Kulich is a one-off. He's probably where most of my exposure will come in. I think he's a great player at $3,200. Great cheap center. Probably my second favorite cheap center play on the slate besides Braden Shen. So I'll probably get to a little bit of Buffalo one, but I won't get too carried away. You play them in one lineup, you're over the field. They're coming at 3% ownership. They looked really good the other night. JJ Paterka is way too cheap at $4,600. Kulich is great at $3,200. Thompson obviously provides tremendous floor at $7,600. The Flames obviously very good defensively, especially on home ice. It's gonna be a tough matchup against the backline line, so that's why I'm not going to get too carried away. Speaking of the backline line, they draw the best matchup of the bunch, going up against that Buffalo top line, which doesn't grade out all that well defensively. That second line for the Flames, you know what you're getting out of them. Safe floor, probably a limited ceiling, as you have most of the season. But they're actually garnering some of the highest ownership on the slate. So I'm definitely buying in a little bit, but second highest owned line on the slate, 12,800 is a really nice price tag. I'll definitely have exposure there. Don't mind getting a Calgary one either. We saw how good they've been able to be throughout the season. I feel like they do most of their damage on home ice. Kadri's on a bit of a cold streak here. So I don't mind getting to a little bit. This third line's been, scoring as well. They just it's not going to continue. They aren't generating anything. So I'll mix in the top 6 here for the Flames, not at a crazy rate. I probably won't meet the field on the Flames. I think that this is mostly a low scoring game, and I'll probably have exposure elsewhere. But Zach, I mean, you've got Edmonton 1, Graydon is the second best line overall. You've got Calgary 2, Graydon is the second highest owned line on the slate. This is the slate that was built for you. What are you doing here with the Calgary side of things?
150 Edmonton 1, Calgary 2 lineups for me tonight, Brock. I'm just going all in here tonight. Going to win me all the money. No, joking aside. But it is kind of funny because my first build of the day that I built this morning that I sent you was an Edmonton 1, Calgary 2 lineup. And I was joking with you saying, I'm just going to throw 150 of these into the contest here tonight. Who knows what can happen? Joking aside here, I actually don't really like the Calgary Flames a whole lot in this game here. And this is actually a spot where I'm kind of going to be comfortable fading the Flames a little bit. My interest is mainly in this Calgary 2 line. They're just a really good, consistent line. They're cheap, and that's really the nice thing you're getting with them there too, right? You got some solid volume, got good floors from these guys. They are grading out as the 17th best line to target on the slate. But when you look at this slate as a whole, Brock, Calgary 1, 2, and 3 are 3 of the 8 highest owned lines on the entire slate tonight. For a big 11-game slate like this, that is incredibly crazy to me. I get it. They're all really cheap. They've all got fairly solid floors and all that sort of stuff. Calgary continues to kind of struggle to score, and that's kind of the big issue there. 1.8 goals for per hour over their last 10 games. And the other big thing here, too, is Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. He is, we talk about the Columbus splits. Let's start talking about the UPL splits. On home ice this season, 20 games played, he's got a 7-10-2 record, a .325 goals against average, and an .883 save percentage, averaging 8.6 DraftKings point per game. Okay. When you get him away from Buffalo, in his 14 games played, he's got an 8-4-2 record, a .264 goals against average, and a .915 save percentage. Those splits are absolutely bonkers to me. And I think it's a reason I'm going to have a lot of interest in UPL at $7,600 tonight at just 3% ownership. You want to talk about a way to bust some chalk tonight? I mean, UPL seems like the way to do it here. So again, I've got a little bit of interest. I might have 5% of each of these lines. in my 20 max that I am building tonight, and the one that I have with Calgary is probably going to be an Edmonton 1 line with them. But I've got quite a bit of interest here in UPL and fading some of this Calgary chalk tonight.
Yeah, I still think that Calgary 2 is a fine play just because of, the ownership scares me a little bit. Voss in the chat is asking, how's the ownership look for backline? Second highest owned line in the slate at 10.3%. Coronado, the lowest of the three, at 9.5%. Also, Joe says, nice show. Thank you for your help. You're welcome, Joe. The matchup's good, right? The matchup's good. 77 on the matchup score. Happy with that. And then since the start of January, Blake Coleman, 8 points in 8 games, averaging close to 3 shots a game. Michael Backlund, just 2 goals, no assists in January in 8 games, averaging 2 shots a game, though. And then Coronado, 6 points, 2 goals in 8 games, averaging 3 shots per game. So the floor is good. They've been capitalizing. The matchup's good at 12,800. It's not like they're 30% owned. It's not like they're that chalky. I have no problem with Calgary 2 tonight. But yeah, my exposures overall is probably going to be somewhat limited in this game. In terms of the power plays in this one, also credit to you. Those UPL splits are wild. Power play sucks for the Flames. It's 26th best up against the 18th ranked PK. Kind of the opposite on the Sabre side of things. They have the 4th best power play matchup. So again, that top line of the Sabres looks okay at 5v5. They grade out mostly well because of their power play. You've got Thompson and Paterka on the top power play unit, Kulich on the second power play unit. Any final thoughts before we move on to Seattle and Washington?
No, I'm ready to talk about what might be the 3 most exciting games of the night.
Yes, Seattle is very interesting to me tonight. I talk about it a lot, that it's not a team that I play a lot of, but tonight I'm interested in Seattle 1. Let's get to the reason why. 43% of their ice time is expected to come against the Alexander Ovechkin line. We talked about it when the Ovechkin line was in Edmonton the other night. Their defensive metrics are hilarious. I don't know how they've only given up 0.8 goals against. That's just Logan Thompson being unbelievable, because these are insane how bad they are. I actually talked to somebody from Oilers Nation that was at the game on what was that, Tuesday? And he's like, man, it's so funny watching Ovechkin live in 2025 because he just glides up and down the wing the whole time and he just does nothing else. Somebody in the DFS Discord today said he looks old, which he is old. It's good for him. But yeah, just these defensive metrics are hilarious. And without Thompson getting the start tonight, they're going to continue to struggle. They got caved in against the Oilers the other night. I think they gave up 8 scoring chances in like 5 minutes against the Draisaitl line. So yeah, this top line for the Kraken has been quite solid since trading for Capo Caco. I think that they're good enough to be able to take advantage of this matchup at very limited ownership, just 1.4% and 12,900. They are a very sneaky play tonight, in my opinion. One that I'm definitely going to get to in these deep tournaments. I think that they're very interesting. Outside of that, I don't really have a ton of interest in this game. Washington 2, maybe. They grade out the best, but like there's just not really a whole lot to love about this game. Maybe a little bit of Washington power play. They grade out 9th best overall, but if Joey Decord gets to start for Seattle, I don't think that Washington's in that great of a spot. We've also seen, their offense dry up a little bit, right? They haven't quite been the same team they were early in the season. At 5v5, they're struggling to defend. They're literally just getting bailed out by Logan Thompson. The offense is pretty bleak. Same can be said about the Seattle side of things, but I think that matchup just really brings Seattle 1 into the picture tonight, and that's probably the only interest that I have in this one.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I'm going to back you there. I don't mind getting to some Seattle 1 here tonight. It does look like a tremendous spot. Obviously it's not going to be Logan Thompson in the net tonight. It's Charlie Lindgren, who's certainly not Logan Thompson. He's having a fine season, a fair season, but Logan Thompson is just out of this world, man. Like that game against the Oilers, I think the Oilers only scored two goals in that game. They generated like 5.4 expected goals in that game, according to Natural Stat Trick. Like I was stunned that the Edmonton Oilers weren't able to score more, and Logan Thompson was just absolutely standing on his head. So here tonight, no Thompson in the net. Fire me up some Seattle Kraken. I've got some interest in that top line for sure. The second and third lines offensively like grade out fairly well. It does feel a little bit bleaker for them, though. I mean, I kind of like the look Seattle 3 with Shane Wright, Jared McCann, and Eli Tolvin down there. I don't know if I'll get there, but they are only $11,300. Seattle 2, $10,600. They're fairly cheap. They're not grading out super well or anything like that. But Seattle 1, I've got interest in them. The Washington side of things, like It's a little bit ugly over there right now. I think for me, I probably got a little bit more interested in Washington too, as a spot that I might be a little comfortable getting over the field on. Pierre-Luc Dubois and Tom Wilson have both lit up the Kraken in their careers. Dubois, 9 games played, 3 point. Jeez. Let me try that one again, everybody. Pierre-Luc Dubois, 9 games played against the Seattle Kraken in his career, 3 goals and 8 points, averaging 8.8 DraftKings points per game without the bonuses. Tom Wilson, 3 games played against the Kraken, 2 goals, 4 points, 13 DraftKings points per game without any bonuses. So I think I'm comfortable mixing in some Washington 2 here tonight as a really low-owned play. They do grade out as the 12th best line to target on the entire slate. So kind of within the top 15 threshold that I like to set for myself. I don't mind this whatsoever there for Washington too.
Since December 22nd, Capo Caco 13 points in 13 games. In that same time frame, Matty Beniers 9 points in 13 games, and Jaden Schwartz 13 points in 13 games. Jaden Schwartz 38 shots on goal during that stretch. So they've been playing extremely well over the last month, and a nice matchup this evening. Okay, let's. Oh yeah, I just wanted to. If people didn't read this one, Korpisalo confirmed for the Bruins this evening. Thank you, Beeps. Let's get to the second to last game of the night. You got the Penguins in Anaheim tonight. 3.4 implied total for the Penguins, -148 road favorites. They are expected to get Rickard Rakell back tonight against his former team. The matchups on the Pittsburgh Penguins side, Sidney Crosby's line, number 1 matchup overall. We talk about the Ryan Strome line, very good offensively, very bad defensively. We talk about the Anaheim third line, that McTavish Fabry line with Cutter Gauthier. Just horrific defensive numbers. They would be by far the worst defensive line on the slate if it wasn't for their own teammates and Alex Ovechkin. So this matchup just simply could not be better for Sidney Crosby. That is the 2 lines he's expected to face the most tonight. The first and the third line going to be about 90% of his ice time tonight. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. And then, I mean, Pittsburgh won, not really seeing all that much ownership. I've talked about it. I do still struggle a little bit clicking on Rickard Rakell and Brian Rust at 7K. I think it feels too expensive, but they've just maintained it. They just have been red hot. They haven't stopped. So I just give up. I'm just going to cave to it. Keep clicking on him at 7K. 21,700 is fine. The matchup here is unbelievable. Number 1 line overall to target. The 5v5 matchup is insane. The power play matchup is also good. 6th best power play over their last 10 games up against the 22nd ranked PK. It's the 5th best overall. So much to like about Pittsburgh one tonight. The rest of this lineup, horrible. So we'll play Pittsburgh 1. That's probably it from the Pittsburgh side of things tonight.
Yeah, totally agree with you there, man. I'm going to be very well over the field on Pittsburgh 1 here tonight in my 20 max tonight. Projecting for 6.8% ownership tonight. Is it egregious to go 3 or 4x over the field here on Pittsburgh 1 and kind of plan to flag? I don't think so whatsoever. Top line to target on this slate tonight, 100% matchup score. Just tremendous numbers in Crosby's career against the Ducks as well. 25 games played, 12 goals and 30 points. Comfortable full stacking them, comfortable mini stacking them. Crosby, Rakell, Crosby, Rust. They all correlate on the top power play unit, which grades out as the 5th best on the entire slate tonight. The Ducks, relatively disciplined, only 2.8 times shorthanded per game, though it is a little bit on the higher than average side there tonight. So, I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward here. Like I'm really comfortable jamming in Pittsburgh 1 tonight and planting the flag on them in a tremendous spot here tonight. What's really interesting to me too in this game is that Anaheim 1 is drawing a fair bit of ownership themselves here on this slate, actually projecting for higher ownership than Pittsburgh 1 is. Anaheim 1 projecting for 10% ownership on the slate. So $13,900. I can understand why they're not very expensive to full stack whatsoever. They are going to be going up against the Crosby line, and what looks like it's going to be just a back and forth game between these 2 lines. The defensive metrics really aren't that great for Pittsburgh 1, even though Rakell is back up there right now. 4.3 goals against per hour of ice time as of late. That's a pretty abysmal number there. So I don't typically like to play the Ducks a whole lot, but this does seem like a really solid matchup. So I think I am going to be getting to the field here on Anaheim 1, eating some of this chalk that we're seeing on this side of this game as well here. We talk about John Gibson being a solid goaltender, him and Dostal, just guys that can absolutely break games or break slates. John Gibson has never really been able to do that a whole lot in his career against the Penguins. 15 games played, 5 wins, 1 shutout, 3.38 goals against average, and a 903 save percentage. So this looks like just a smash spot for Pittsburgh 1 tonight. I'll be getting well over the field on them here tonight.
The power play matchup for the Penguins is, solid. Their just power play stinks. I have a hard time trusting chalky Pittsburgh or chalky Anaheim. They do grade out 6th best overall tonight, 13,900. I'll probably get there. Probably meet the field at about 10%. I won't get too carried away. Vetrano, though, projected as literally one of the highest owned forwards overall. I think the second highest. Yeah, second highest owned forward on the slate, which is kind of wild. I don't love it. Feels kind of gross, but I don't. The Penguins certainly aren't they haven't been a great defensive team. They have been lately. So I think that fading this chalk makes a little bit of sense, especially given the fact that the Ducks just kind of aren't that good, especially on the power play. I think their upside's somewhat limited, but we know that the Penguins have had some goaltending struggles this year, but man, they've really started to turn things around defensively. So, Anaheim one will be in the mix for sure. I don't know how much I'll end up getting there. That chalk is horrifying. It's hard to trust Anaheim chalk. I think we've learned that lesson a couple times this year too.
Definitely.
Okay, final game of the night. You got the Sharks and the Predators. So obviously things were just insane the other night. Not much has changed, right? Like, the Sharks run a back-to-back. Now it's their 3rd game in 4 nights. But like, the Predators were massive favorites in that game, and now they're still massive favorites, even though it's in San Jose and it's not on back-to-back. I think the one thing that's insane is that Nashville's price has gone up $3,000 as a whole line since that game. They were 18,900 on Tuesday. They're 21,900, the most expensive line on the slate. So that's good. That's going to help keep their ownership down at 11% tonight. They're still the highest owned line on the slate overall. I really like Yaroslav Askarov. Vots does as well. No, that's not the right one. Where did he say it? The chalkbuster tonight is going to be Askarov, which I kind of agree with. At $7,100, we talked about it the other day. I'm surprised he didn't start the other night in Nashville. Obviously, they wanted to give him the home game. The revenge narrative here is massive. They did not want to give him an opportunity yet in Nashville. They wanted to commit to UC Saros. I think it would have been poetic if he would have started in Nashville and UC Saros got pulled the way he did and Askarov locked it down at the other end. Instead, Georgiev gave up 5 goals in 15 minutes of hockey. So yeah, I think that it's entirely possible that Askarov locks things down as a bit of a chalk buster tonight at, what is he, $7,100?
Yep.
$7,100, projected for just 3% ownership. Expect to see the most volume on the slate. He's super interesting to me. I'll definitely be getting some Askarov. But that being said, I do still think it makes some sense to get to Nashville 1. They've been red hot. The matchup is still very good. They're still scoring at way above their expected number, but the power play is the number 1 power play advantage in the slate. Like we talked about the other day, I ate chalk on Tuesday and it paid off because the spot was just too good to ignore. That being said, we know that this is a Nashville team that is extremely solid on home ice. On the road this season, it has not been the case. They have the lowest goals for per game on the road. They generate the 23rd most expected goals for per game on the road. The 4th highest expected goals for, but the 32nd actual goals for. So they just have not been able to convert whatsoever. How long that continues remains to be seen, right? They're still generating a lot of chances, but they haven't, similar to the Blue Jackets, the road woes have been real for the Predators this season. So I still think I'm going to eat some chalk. It's not 30% like it was the other day. It still looks like a good spot, but I have a lot of interest still in Askarov as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I'm 20 maxing tonight, so I'm comfortable getting over the field on Nashville 1 tonight and getting up to 15% on them. I don't think that's going to kill me in any way, shape, or form. And then I'll probably just match that ownership with Askarov at 15% as well in some other lineups. It feels like a great spot here for Nashville 1. It really does. I never get scared away from building around high expensive lines. 21,900, obviously, that's a lot of money for these guys here. They are coming in as the highest owned line on the slate, right behind Pittsburgh 1. So, you have to find ways to get different. I think we've covered some of those options tonight on this slate here. So for me, yeah, I'm going to be getting over the field on Nashville 1. what do we do with the rest of this lineup though, right? Like Nashville 3, they had a really solid game in that game too. Fedor Svechkov at 3K, like he's a really solid punt option tonight on this slate. His raw projections don't necessarily grade out the best, but over his last 23 games, he's averaging only 12 minutes of ice time per night, but damn, has he been productive. 1.8 goals per hour of ice time versus 1.5 individual expected goals. 8.6 shots on goal per hour of ice time. That shot on goal total is pretty similar to what Tommy Novak's been doing over his last 20 as well, 8.2. What's really interesting here for Nashville 3 as well is Novak has had a lot of success going up against the Sharks in his career. 6 games played, 5 goals and 9 points in those games. So fire me up on some Nashville 3 here tonight as a pivot option off of Nashville 1. I think that's a really interesting way to go. Nashville 2, they're drawing, next to no ownership here, 2.5%. Ryan O'Reilly coming in around 5%. He's obviously been pretty strong as of late. I think 5% ownership there, maybe 10% is probably not the worst thing either. So yeah, I've got interest in Nashville for sure. The San Jose side of things, I mean, like, what do we do with them here, right? Because again, we saw what they were able to do a couple of nights ago against this pretty much this exact same Nashville squad, right? So I think I've got some interest in playing some San Jose 2, San Jose 1 and San Jose 2, I suppose. I mean, this game's pace score is 99.1. These last 3 games here on the night are like 3 of the 4 highest paced games on the slate. And San Jose 1 drawing a really good matchup here, an 82.8 score, 56% of their ice timing is going to be going up against Nashville 1, who is really just a high volume line on both sides of the ice. So I think I've got some interest in mixing in some San Jose here as well. Brock, what are you doing with these Sharkies tonight?
Yeah, running a little bit late on time here, but definitely interested in getting back to San Jose 2. They grade out by far the best offensively for the Sharks with Tyler Toffoli back in the lineup tonight. Overall, they grade out 25th best, but not seeing much ownership tonight at all. Celebrini's been an absolute stud. I think this is a pretty good matchup for San Jose 2, but I'm not going to get too carried away. 5-10% with them. I like to look at this line with Eklund, Celebrini, and Toffoli. The matchup's pretty solid. Probably more exposure to them on the late slate than anything, but definitely in the mix here on the main slate for me. And yeah, I like Nashville. If you talk about the third line the other night, they actually led the way with 0.88 expected goals for at 5v5, better than the Marchessault, Stamkos, and Forsberg line. They obviously come in super cheap. I do think that they're a solid value option if you want to go kind of dumpster diving. They grade out 47th best, but at only 8,300, obviously super cheap, projected for 3% ownership. The main concern, obviously, with the Preds tonight is just the top line is just the salary, right? At 21,900, it's a little bit more difficult to build around. It's going to be very difficult to get Roman Josi in there. Like it was super easy the other night. Like you had no issues whatsoever building around Nashville. Where tonight things are going to get a little bit tighter. We've talked about some lines that we really, really like though that are pretty cheap. So I think it's not going to be too impossible, but yeah, they're going to need to kind of nuke the slate again. And I just don't know if I trust them as much on the road. But yeah, everything pointing towards another good night for them. The matchup score at 98.9, the top power play matchup. I mean, it's hard to ignore that. Let's talk about some defensemen really quickly before we get you on your way. Kind of the same usual suspects, right? Jackson Lacombe, $4,400, a guy I really like. Didn't love him the other night. Tough matchup, much better matchup tonight. Caden Gooley continues to just have a tremendous floor at $3,200. Nick Blankenberg, I'll continue to fire him up on a night-to-night basis, especially in this matchup at $2,700. Feel very strongly about him. Radko Gudas is a guy you play all the time. He just absolutely went bananas the other night against who was at the Florida Panthers. He had like 20 DraftKings points. He's always kind of capable of just doing crazy shit like that. Don't mind Andre Miller. He's been solid at $3,300. Love Lane Hudson tonight at $4,200. Shane Gostisbehere looks okay as well, $4,700. He's expected to play, although a game time decision. Let's see in terms of ownership. Who are the cheap defensemen that everyone's playing? Jared Spurgeon, you mentioned him earlier, $4,100. Down for that. Lacombe, yes. Hudson, yes. Brent Burns has been awesome at $4,900. The volume is just unbelievable as of late. Turned the clock back entirely. He's a new man all of a sudden. Don't mind Matt Grzelcyk. I don't love that the price tag's gone up, but I think that's a good spot for Grzelcyk. As long as he's on that top power play unit, he's always going to be an okay play and can bump into a couple of assists. Yeah, that's probably going to do it for me. Who do you want to talk about really quickly? Zach.
Yeah, Gudis and Dante Fabro, I think they're both solid plays tonight. Dante Fabro, 3 games against the Carolina Hurricanes so far this season. He's hit the shot block bonus in each of them, averaging 13.6 DraftKings points per game. So he looks like a really solid option at $3,800. Nick Blankenberg continuing to grade out really, really well. $2,700. He's been an absolute animal as of late. Huge night the other night in that game against the Sharks. Caden Gooley looking good again at $3,200, even though he gave me goose eggs pretty much the other night. I'll probably get back to him a little bit on this slate here as well. But I think you hit the nail on the head on some of these guys for sure.
Before we get to the goalies, Bluffy is asking, where do I get this Excel spreadsheet? So yeah, these are offered for free every single day at dailyfaceoff.com, Monday through Friday. In the fantasy section right here, DFO, DFS charts. You can go there. We've got our show. Hey, how's it going? Then you got DraftKings and you got the FanDuel charts as well. All the information we talk about today on the show is DraftKings related. Everything carries over to FanDuel outside of the pricing. The line stack rankings basically shows which lines have had the most success, basically shows which line's going to have the most success. Yeah, so basically what it is it takes the offensive metrics for each line, right? You got the offensive score, which is just a kind of condensed number of all these metrics. Takes the metrics and compares them with the defensive metrics of the opposition that they're going to face that evening using the matchups. So it's basically like everything is a very fancy calculation, but we provide the matchup score, the offensive score, the defensive score, just as a way to kind of look at it and dissect it quickly. But the easiest way to do it is just all the numbers on these sheets boil down to the line score. And then the line score is based on the 5v5 matchup that they have, the power play matchup that line's expected to do, and then just the raw projections as well. It's a combination of all those three things. It's weighted more heavily towards 5v5 because that's the majority of the game. But yeah, this is the way we break it down. It's just all the sheets in basically one here. We call it kind of the holy grail, the big board. Let's get to the goalies tonight. Actually, let's blow it up here. Okay. Philip Gustafson feels really good to me at $7,800. Love that price tag for him. Really like the Wild tonight. Don't mind getting to Shesterkin either. 9% owned is expected to be the highest owned on the slate. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen feels okay as a bit of a chalk buster. Don't mind that. Dustin Wolf also feels okay at $7,800. And then yeah, I where did he go? Askarov, I think, is a fine play if you're fading the Nashville Predators this evening. Some of the other cheaper options, I don't know how much I'm going to get there. I think Sam Erson's fine, but probably won't play too much. I think honestly I'm going to be building around a ton of Philip Gustafson tonight. What about you?
Yeah, I don't hate that idea whatsoever. He might be one of my favorite plays on the slate at $7,800. 8,200 Alex Nedeljkovic might feel a little bit gross, but in his career against the Anaheim Ducks, 2 games, 2 wins, 0.96 goals against average and a .947 save percentage. So great history there. Igor Shesterkin, he has been just red hot as of late. I like him here at 8K tonight too. A couple of the cheaper goaltenders that I got my eye on, UPL, mentioned him as a chalk buster, really like him. I'm good with getting to Dustin Wolf too. Yaroslav Askarov at 7,100, I like him. Joel Hofer at $7,400. I think you could talk me in a little bit of Hofer here on this slate as well.
Do you force stacking? Yeah, like I try to stack as much as possible, try to correlate my lineups as best as possible. In cash games, not quite as necessary, but in tournaments, yes. Would you full stack Montreal 1 or pair with the D-man? I don't mind pairing them with Lane Hudson at all. Let's get to the hat trick picks tonight. Again, if you want to participate in the hat trick pick challenge, just comment your hat trick pick in the comment section of the video after the show is over. Again, we had a winner last night, so let's see if we can go 2 in a row. We do not have daily face-off head-to-head, so we're going to make our hat trick picks now and then head on our way. Zach, did you or I win yesterday? I believe you did, right?
Yes, I did win yesterday.
Okay, so you can take your hat trick pick first.
Tremendous. That gives me the opportunity to take Leon Draisaitl, 25 goals in 47 games played against the Vancouver Canucks.
Very cool. I'm going to go with Kirill Kaprizov back in the lineup tonight. Hopefully he comes back with a bang. I like Kirill Kaprizov. So yes, if you want to participate, again, comment section of the video on YouTube after the show ends. While you're there, smash that like button. We have over 1,300 live viewers right now across all platforms. If you're watching on YouTube, please smash that like button. Helps us grow the channel, helps us grow the show, helps us continue to be able to do the show Monday through Friday. All this information's 100% free. It's impossible to find anything this free these days. So yeah, I'm proud that we were able to offer it for free. If you could smash the like button to help us continue to grow this stuff, that would be much appreciated. And then, as always, shout out to our friends at rotogrinders.com for providing projected ownership for today's show. It's really leveled up the show. It's made mine and Zach's job a lot easier. If you want to get $20 off your first month of NHL Premium at rotogrinders.com, you can do so by clicking the link in the description of the video on YouTube. You can take everything you learned in today's show, put it in their optimizer, build the optimal lineup for tonight. And then if you want to join the DFS Discord, we also have a link to that in the description of the video. That community is growing every single day. We chat DFS all day long. And we also provide all the kind of late breaking news in warmups, whether it's an injury or a line change, to make sure that you've got no holes in your lineup or that your lineup is as correlated as possible. Especially tonight, it's a huge night to join that Discord because we've got so many kind of goalies that are up in the air. You want to make sure you don't have one of those goalies in your lineup. Just a reminder, Zach did mention Alex Nedeljkovic. We don't know for sure that he's in there, so if you play Nedeljkovic, make sure you're aware that it could be Blomqvist. We'll find out some of these answers later. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Smash that like button, and best of luck tonight. Hopefully you return with more money in your bankroll tomorrow than you had tonight. I'm Brock Seguin. We got Zach Laing. See you guys same spot tomorrow. Cheers. Actually, before we go, if you come back tomorrow, we do have a $50 Nation Gear gift card giveaway every single Friday. All you have to do is one comment in the live chat. We'll do a live at the end of the show every Friday, $50 gift card to Nation Gear. So tune in tomorrow for that. Now, cheers. Now, bye. Cheers.